your hand up, I will speak louder. So we're going to talk about social selling in the digital era. How many of you are tired of hearing about social media by a raise of hands? Be honest. Me too! It's been a decade. Why are we still talking about it? That's just a drum roll there.
That was an echo of social media.
Exactly. The reason why we are still talking about this is because it's fundamentally changing the way we sell and market, and it is not going anywhere. Same as you might have said, what's email? Why is email going to make things any different about how we do business? Email completely changed the way we interact with our customers. Social media is going to have the same impact as email did 15 years ago. Do you remember this thing? Phone book? Sure. Millennials don't. And Generation Z coming up behind them, they are never going to have seen one of these things. The digital representation of this these days is this. So what that means for you is that if you're not here in these channels on social media, either having a profile, a company profile, a personal profile, millennials and Generation Z don't even know you exist. And thinking about this in terms of if you don't put content out there in those channels, that's the digital equivalent of this. Can you imagine going to a trade show and not bringing a booth, product, people? It's the same thing. So I know a number of you are thinking, I can't stand social media, I don't feel comfortable with it, I don't know what to say, I don't know where to even start. And I can tell you that it's really easy in terms of the beginning part of how you can get involved. And the key to that is just start listening. Your customers are putting so much information out there about themselves, both from a supplier perspective and a distributor perspective. And the key thing is to just start listening to what they're saying and think about how it is that's going to change your relationship with them. I can tell you, if you go to your client's office now and show up and say, so what's new? What are you working on? This is the response you're going to start to get. If you walk in already knowing what's happening in the world because you're engaged with them on Facebook or Twitter or other mediums, then all of a sudden the conversation changes. It elevates when you walk in the door because you have something to talk about, for one thing. You know what's been happening with them in recent days. You know what's going on with their brand. You know what things are happening kind of in their world and what challenges they're facing. So all of a sudden the conversation moves here in terms of it becomes strategic. It's not this chit-chat about the common day-to-day things that you should already know about before you get there. Suppliers in particular, there are so many forums out there right now where distributors are looking for product. They're asking questions. They're sourcing ideas. They want input on projects. They're putting this out there all the time. Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups, Common Scheme. This stuff is everywhere right now. And if you or someone in your company is not engaging in those forums and following those conversations, it's the digital equivalent of this. They're calling your office and nobody is answering the phone. So if that doesn't convince you enough in terms of why you need to be in there in these platforms to begin with, let's talk about the next iteration of this in terms of what social selling is. So 62% of content consumed by people born after 1980 is created by someone they know. So what does that mean for you? It means that if you don't have a relationship with the person that you are trying to sell to and to send content to, odds are they're not going to read it. You're going to end up in the promotions tab in their email, or in the spam, or in that everything else bucket down at the bottom. If you have a relationship with them, they are far more likely to be interested in what it is that you are saying. Think about what your opportunities are these days in terms of developing relationships. There's not nearly as much face-to-face time as there used to be. You don't have that opportunity. People don't want to be on the phone anymore in terms of millennials and Generation Z. They want to be on this phone. They want to be hearing from you digitally. They don't want to be on this phone. So where are your opportunities to be creating those relationships to make sure they want to read what it is that you are sending with them? It's in the digital realm. And you got to figure that out in terms of that next generation coming through, because otherwise they're not going to read what it is that you're sending. So what's the implication in terms of the buying process? So 75% of the buying process is done with millennials. before they even engage with you in the first place. So what does that mean in terms of the touch point that you are experiencing with them at that point in time? They know the products they're looking for. They've been doing that research on the web. They're so far along in terms of their considerations of what it is that they're looking at, that if when you join in the conversation at that point, if you start talking about product specifications or things, they are so far past that. You need to think about how can you add value in that last 25% of the buying process to make sure that they want to engage with you going forward. And this same thing applies to suppliers as to distributors. And if you think about the amount of research that is now available to the distributor in the internet world, before it is that they might contact you, they don't want to hear the basics about what it is. They can find that on your website. They can find that within all the different channels that are available. So what information can you offer them at that final stage in terms of solving their challenges or adding value? Share success stories of how that particular product has worked in different scenarios. What are case studies or use cases or things that's going to help that distributor sell that product to the customer? On the distributor side, what is it that you can understand about the marketing objectives your customer is trying to achieve, the business challenges they face every day? How is it that you can take the research they've already done and translate that into how it's going to solve their problem, or give them a different idea they didn't think about because you understand the strategy of their business and what it is that they are trying to achieve? There's so much paranoia in this industry about disintermediation, and I can tell you that if your presence doesn't add value, your absence won't make a difference. As a distributor, you have to make sure that you are actually adding value to justify the margin you are charging. If the customer can find what it is that they need, and there's nothing else of value that you are adding to that buying process, why should they buy from you versus going to Alibaba or somewhere else? Same thing for suppliers. If you can't add value in that buying process, why should the distributor buy from you versus going from the factory? So think about this in terms of how it is that you can continue to add value within that interaction to engender loyalty. Because that's really what this comes down to in terms of why someone wants to buy from you in the first place. Is relationship, is loyalty, is what the difference is that you are making in the buying process to make them come back. What that translates into within the social selling context is really around education. So the way in which you can add value at whatever point along the supply chain is by helping educate the customer. So think about the methodologies that you can do that with. And a lot of it really comes down to what's now called content marketing. Content is king. Content's the new cold call. I'm sure you've heard a lot of discussion around content marketing. And what it really means is simply using the social web, social media, various other channels to be able to distribute kind of value-add information to your customer. Whether it's blog posts, ebooks, articles, whatever else you can think of that's going to help them do their job better, that is what content marketing is. And essentially what it helps you to do is to create that loyalty and that value-add with your customer. It's beyond just sending out flyers. Think about it from the supplier perspective, that the typical social media engagement that you see kind of as suppliers started adopting this channel is using it as a way to distribute flyers, sales, specials. I can tell you, millennials couldn't care less about that stuff. They don't even see it. They are so thirsty to learn and to grow and to develop in their roles that you have to be thinking about ways to help them be better in their job. What are the tools you can give them to help them sell better? Exactly the same thing applies for distributors to your end users. The young people in marketing roles that don't have that much experience, you are the experts around product. What can you share with them to help them be better in their job? And when you don't have the opportunity to do that face-to-face or on the phone, you have to do that in the digital space. So how can you do that in a way that's going to be engaging with them and is going to build those relationships? I know what you're thinking. I don't have time to create content. I've got thousands of emails coming through every day. I'm running all over the place and I don't have time to do this. And I can tell you, you don't have time not to do this in terms of thinking about a different way of approaching how you are dealing with your customers. Trade show attendance is declining. Distributors don't want to take meetings anymore because they've already seen a lot of what you're bringing in the web. So if you're coming in to do a meeting in the first place, add value, share case studies, success stories, other things to be beyond just talking about product specs and about features. They've already read about it, they've already seen them. So think differently in terms of how it is that you're approaching that sales process. The same thing from a distributor perspective. You can't just pump out flyers aren't going to care about that shortly. How can you help them be better at their job? So if you're panicking about not having time to create content, just to start off with, curate. All of you read. All of you are constantly coming across interesting things every day about marketing, about products, about different approaches that can help your customers. Share that information with them. That's all curating is. It's just a fancy word to be able to say, take good stuff that you're reading and share it with your customers in a way that can help them be better at their job. So to recap, be visible. Make sure you have profiles set up on social media platforms. Otherwise, you're not going to be found. This is a digital phone book. Think about making sure that your information is available so customers can find you. Develop digital relationships. Think about what that means. It's really simple in terms of just engaging with people in those environments. And a lot of it is just thinking about what you do every day now, historically, face-to-face and over the phone. It's replicating that same experience in the digital environment. Get involved with their lives. Be excited about what they're doing. Millennials have no boundaries between life and work. No boundaries at all. Everything is totally intertwined. So if you think you can continue to say, Facebook is my personal life and LinkedIn is my business life, that is not going to work going forward because they don't see a difference between the two. So the more you can continue to recognize that that world has changed, kind of accept that and start relating with them in those environments, the more you're going to be able to establish those relationships and engender loyalty. Add value. If there is one takeaway you take from this entire session, is thinking about what can you do to add value in the sales process. Think about the digital channels to do that. And lastly, create or curate content. There's no question that content marketing and that whole approach around what the